So to kick off on the call, I'll start with myself since I'm on here. I'm a New Zealand trained primary school teacher, and I taught in New Zealand for 3 years. And then I went and worked overseas. My journey took me to London, where I worked for 2 years over there. When I came back from overseas, I've been working in education recruitment ever since. So supporting other Kiwi educators who are traveling around the world. And I am based in Auckland. And after this, we'll all email out our details so that you can keep in contact with us and book a call and that kind of thing. But we're all sort of here to support you. We're really lucky because we're joined by 2 of our consultants from Australia. So you're getting the expert knowledge right from them. So on the call, we've got James. So I'll let him introduce himself.
Yep. Hi, everyone. I'm James Riley. I'm an education recruitment consultant for casual teachers in Sydney. A little bit about me. I grew up in country New South Wales, moved to Sydney when I was about 15, and then studied actually health science at uni. Don't have the education background that Claire has, but been working for about 1.5 years at ANZUK, and I guess helping teachers make the move over to start teaching casually or permanently in Sydney. And on the call as well is my colleague Kyle, who I guess will introduce himself now.
Thanks, Jimmy. So I'm Kyle. I work as part of the Home Opportunities team in Sydney. We also work right across the state. A little bit about me. So, similar to Jimmy, I got that health science background. So studied sort of health science and sports science. And I've been working at ANZUK since December last year. Perfect.
Great, thanks guys. Okay, moving on quickly, just to introduce who we are as a company. So we're very much a global business. We have offices around the world, and our whole aim is supporting educators to find the right school. So the way agencies operate is we charge the schools a fee for our services. So we are a free service for our educators. So we don't charge anything. We support you on your journey wherever you're going in terms of finding work. That's our sole aim, but around that we have really great support service, and we'll talk to you a little bit about that. So we've been in operation for 16 years now. There's the photo of our 2 directors, the brainchild of the company. So that's Ben, who is based in the London side, and Dan, who is based in the Australian side. As you'll see, we've got it's an amalgamation of 3 different companies. So ANZUK, we have offices right across Australia, which will show you locations. We also have offices in the UK because we support educators from Australia, New Zealand, Canada going into England and Wales to work. We've got offices in Canada. This is just there to support the Canadians traveling out of Canada. So a lot of Canadians will go into Australia and the UK. Unfortunately, we don't bring educators into Canada at the moment. We've got Scoot Education as part of the family. There's over 14 offices right across America from the west to east coast. And then here in New Zealand, EP Education is part of our group. And they support educators across New Zealand, particularly Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch, for relief work and permanent roles. And they support a lot of overseas educators coming in, but they also do local support our local Kiwi trained educators as well. Okay, so moving on. I put this in there because I'll just let some people in. Because most people on here are called Tyler Healy, it would be great if you could pop in the chat your name and where you're from. So whether you could, I would put I'm Claire from Auckland, just so we've got an idea of who we've got on the call and where, what location you're based in. We did have a lot of people register for this, but I think some of them might have been Australian based. Can you see the chat, James? I've got too many windows open.
Yep, I can. People are starting to leave their
Great.
names and where they're from.
Oh, there's the button. Great. Oh, lovely. Oh, quite a few Aucklanders. It was such a nice day in Auckland today. I had my t-shirt on all day. Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Moving on. And I'll get that out of the way. Right, so reasons to go for teaching in Australia. Most educators I speak to are just sort of ready for something new. They might have been teaching in New Zealand for a while and just would like to try a new curriculum. It's quite a nice move, just heading to Australia. You know, you can still pop home if you had to for a weekend. You know, it's a 3-hour flight to get back. So it's not too big a move. Career opportunities, because a lot of the schools we work with are independent or Catholic schools. So it's an opportunity to perhaps get into something, you know, something that's great on your CV there. Any international experience on your CV is really attractive to Kiwi principals. Everyone's interested in hearing about your overseas experience. What did you like about the curriculums and things like that? So it's a really good talking point. And for new grads, now we're getting a lot of new grads who are interested. It's a great transition for your registration, because you can actually complete your New Zealand registration in Australia and bring that back with you to New Zealand. So it's a way of not having to teach in New Zealand for those 2 years if you don't want to. So, and then of course the salary. So generally across the board, you're looking at about 30% higher salaries than what you get here in New Zealand. And we'll touch a little bit on those coming up, so you get a bit of an idea. One more quick poll, again, just so we know who we've got on the call. We find work for early childhood, primary and secondary teachers. If you could just indicate what you teach, because if we don't have any early childhood teachers on the call, then we'll only talk about primary and secondary. So if you could just pop in there your subject or what levels you teach. Okay. Oh, there is an early childhood. Okay. Primary and secondary.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. If we can chat to you about that at the end, your career options for that. We do offer work for people who aren't qualified, although it won't be within teaching. You need to have a teaching qualification to be able to teach in Australia, but we do have other support work and roles that we could look for you if you were going over there. I'm going to pass on to James for this one because he's got better geography than I do.
Yeah, so I mean, ANZUK, we have offices all around Australia. So I mean, and early childhood and primary opportunities kind of all over. So New South Wales, we offer early childhood, primary, secondary school positions, both casually and permanently. In Victoria, it's the same. And not only in, say, Melbourne or Sydney, we also work regionally as well. In Queensland, we work in secondary schools for permanent positions, as well as in early childhood for casual and perm. And in Canberra, the ACT, we work in early childhood for casual and perm positions. And then the WA office will be opening in Perth. That is coming soon if I guess you're interested in moving over there.
Cool, thanks, James. Okay, so making the move to work over there, if you've got a New Zealand passport, then it's really straightforward. It's a matter of transferring the registration, New Zealand registration, over to the relevant state that you're going to. If you don't have a New Zealand passport, then we have a visa support service that we would direct you to in that case. Some passport holders are eligible for a working holiday visa for Australia, but otherwise you'll be looking at, there's a other visa options, depending on where you're from. So if you don't have a New Zealand passport, then just follow up with me and I'll point you in the right direction of who to contact. Qualifications, generally in Australia, they have a 4-year degree to become a teacher. And currently in New Zealand, as all of you will know, our bachelor's is a 3-year. So if you've done the grad dip, then it's straightforward. If you've done the 3-year degree, then technically there's a Trans-Tasman Mutual Recognition Agreement in place, and that should override most cases. So if you're registered as a teacher in New Zealand, the Trans-Tasman Mutual Agreement means that you should be accepted as a registered teacher in Australia. And we'll just go into a little bit more detail on those shortly. If you're early childhood, then if there is an organisation called ASEQA, which is sort of like NZQA here in New Zealand. So you have to, before you take any further steps, go onto the ASEQA website. And again, follow up with me at the end of that if you need, and I can email you the link. And find out where your qualifications sits. The early childhood qualifications are a little bit higher level than New Zealand. So unless you've got a 4-year degree as an early childhood teacher, you'll be recognised as a lead teacher rather than an early childhood teacher. But I can go into more detail with that. So early childhood person on the call, please follow up with me at the end. Curriculum-wise, Australian curriculum, really similar to the New Zealand curriculum. Kyle, do you find that with the Kiwis heading over? Are they sort of assimilating easily?
Yeah, definitely. I had a teacher from New Zealand originally that's been teaching here for a few years now that I was speaking to earlier in the year, and she had no real hiccups transitioning across.
Yeah, great. Yeah, primary is primary, really. And yeah, the secondary subject areas, it's more of an exam based over there. Is that right, Kyle? I'm a primary teacher, so.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so that teacher recognition, just sort of, so every state has a different registration body. In Victoria, the state of Victoria, you need to register with the Victorian Institute of Teachers, or the VIT. This can all be done before you get to Australia. So it's a completely online application. They are a little bit fiddly to deal with, and they don't want you to apply for this until you're within a 6-week window of arriving. So this is sort of one of the later things that you will end up doing. Processing times are anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks, and it's $167. And then it's $100 annually to renew it. Again, there's a route that you can take when you apply under the Trans-Tasman Mutual Agreement. Paperwork-wise, it's still quite heavy. There's a lot to do, and you've got to go and get a lot of things signed by JP and that kind of thing and verified. But we have a guide on our blog, and that will take you through and link you to all of the paperwork and the forms that you need. So that makes it a lot more straightforward. For New South Wales, I'll leave this one to James. He's the expert on this.
Yeah, thanks, Claire. Yeah, so it is a little bit different in New South Wales. I mean, you can't really start the process for getting accredited in New South Wales until you're here on the ground. So you'll have to be here to apply for what's called your Working with Children check. So that takes basically 2 days. We're seeing it come back in like an hour or two at the moment, the Working with Children check. It's been a really good turnaround time, which has, been awesome. So yeah, you pay $80 to get that. Once you receive that number back, you can apply for what's called your NESA registration. So to teach anywhere in New South Wales, you need that NESA, which takes anywhere from kind of 2 to 4 weeks to come back. I mean, I've seen it come back in 3 days. I've seen it come back in 23 days. So it really depends. I'd say you're probably looking at like a 10 working day wait at the moment. And that costs $100, allows you to teach in independent schools. So if you want to work in public schools, there is another approval beyond your NESA, which is your DET registration, so department. And yeah, you apply for that online. That takes another couple of weeks. So it is a different process. It probably takes like 3 weeks overall to get accredited fully. There is a lot of work available, however, in just independent schools with just your NESA. But obviously, with that department approval, it just it opens more doors for you.
Well, and again, we've got a guide on our blog, which will take you through the steps and what to expect and what you need to get done. Final poll, and this one was sort of what state you, having looked at where we cover, what sort of state you'd be most interested in teaching. Victoria, Queensland or New South Wales really are the main ones, unless you're early childhood, and then you've got ACT as an option as well. Oh, Victoria. Oh, we've got 2 New South Wales consultants on.
Come to Sydney.
Yay, Queensland. Oh, cool. Yeah, and someone's pretty open to anything, and that's fine. You can be open to all of them. So not currently options in Queensland. I actually had an educator who just arrived into Queensland and tried herself to find work, and she got in touch this week and they've decided to go to Sydney because they were getting no response. So it is hard in Queensland as a primary teacher. They just don't seem to have a shortage at all.
Yeah, okay.
WA, okay, great. Need to get that Perth office up and running. Vic, so we cover Victoria really comprehensively. We've actually got 3 offices in Melbourne. So we've got one in central Melbourne, one in St Kilda. We have an office in Geelong, which is on the east coast, and then we've also got another one sort of more on the outskirts in Dandenong. So really we've actually sort of got 4 in that greater Melbourne area. You can live anywhere you like within that area, and we will be able to guarantee you 5 days a week relieving or find you a permanent role depending on the time of the year. We also cover the entire state of Melbourne as well. So if you want to go and live in Bendigo or in the Yarra Valley, you know, we cover Victoria really, really well. All subject areas, as James mentioned before, and within all of those offices, we have a temp team. Now, temp is sort of the company speak, but that's relieving. So we have a relieving team and we have perm teams. So you've got a choice of what you like. We also do executive roles. We've placed principals, and then the ambassador, which we'll cover, James will chat about shortly when we're talking about relief teaching. And we also do bush work, which is sort of school holiday programs and after school care and things like that. Sydney.
Yeah, so similar to Victoria, obviously a lot of different opportunities available in New South Wales, both in Sydney and regionally as well. Primary, secondary, and special education opportunities. I saw someone ask about the rates as well. We will cover the rates kind of towards the end of this presentation, but in New South Wales, it is approximately $370 a day of work. So yeah, offer obviously CRT work, relieving work, permanent opportunities, executive positions for, I guess, your more experienced teachers, early childhood, USH work as well. The ambassador program is one that's, I guess, implemented in Victoria and New South Wales. That's where, obviously, depending on location and your, I guess, what you're qualified to do, we can sign you up to what's called a guaranteed work agreement, and guarantee you 5 days of casual work per week if that's what you're looking for. We can also do it for, say, 3 days of casual work a week if that's what you want. If we basically, it's the guarantee is, so if we couldn't find you work on that day, you'd still get paid for that day. It's kind of I guess how confident we are in being able to find you that work, and I guess it's a peace of mind from your end as well. So yeah, plenty of different opportunities available in New South Wales.
Thanks, James. Keep going.
Yeah, I'll continue on. Obviously, I'm the casual relief consultant here. So there's so many, I guess, benefits for casual work for people of, I guess, all experiences. I mean, you get to know local schools. You have the opportunity to develop and enhance your teaching skills, which is something really important for, I think, those younger new graduate type of teachers. See a bunch of different environments and really come out the other side a stronger teacher. You build rapport with different schools. You learn classroom management, behaviour management skills. There's flexibility as well. We have our own personalised custom-built system called Ready to Work, whereby you'll have access. You can log onto that system, log what days you're available for casual, log what days you're not. I mean, if you're moving over to Sydney or Melbourne or anywhere, I mean, you might want to have, say, the Friday and the Monday off to shoot, I don't know, over to Cairns or something like that, just for a little long weekend or something. CRT really kind of, it allows you to do that. Expand your teaching areas, work kind of those general cover positions, see different subjects, and then a range of settings as well. I mean, maybe you've always wanted to try special education, and we can get you a couple of days there. We'll get that feedback. Maybe you loved it, maybe you didn't. It's just kind of a really good way to get in and have a go.
I found that as a supply so CRT is casual relief teaching. So when I was relieving, that chance to just work in all different types of schools was really good. I taught all the different levels of primary. I taught in special needs schools, different kinds of faith schools. I had experience in independent schools. So it's really, really good for a good look around. And once you've been out teaching, to have a bit of a break and then go into relieving, it's a pretty amazing feeling when it gets to 3:20 and everyone's gone and you're like, oh, what shall I do? I've got nothing to do for the rest of the day. You don't have any responsibilities or any work weighing on your head, and you never have that feeling as a teacher. So it's really, really nice. And I think everyone should at some point experience just being a CRT reliever, give yourself a bit of a break. There's a few questions that have come through. Some of them we'll address. So permanent, yes, you can apply for permanent positions, and Kyle's going to cover that in a minute. Someone's also asked if it's easy to get relief teaching in Queensland. No, it's not, unless you're in early childhood. If you're in early childhood, 100%, 5 days a week, there's more work than we have early childhood educators. So, but otherwise, if you're secondary, it has to be permanent work. So really hard to get relief work in Queensland. From West Australia, and I've been asked to go through a CEQA, but I'm a primary teacher with a diploma. I'll answer that one at the end because that's a bit more specialised. Generally, no, we can't sponsor teachers when we've tried. If you're sort of an experienced physics teacher, I might leave that for Kyle to answer, but generally you need to be able to secure a visa yourself. Salary range will come up to that as well for primary, secondary. Primary teachers, you need to have an early childhood qualification to work in early childhood in Australia. So they're much more strict over there in early childhood. So unfortunately, unless you have a ECE specialisation, you're unable to do that. So I'll pass on to Kyle, and he will address a few of these questions as he chats. So
thanks for that, Claire. In the perm opportunities team, so we work in those longer term roles, whether it be range from a term all the way up to those permanent roles, so ongoing types of roles, both part-time and full-time, contracted ongoing, as it states there. In the type of process, so when applying for these roles, so essentially once you're set up with us, so we have like your teaching accreditation, all those documents on file. We set up your profile and put a summary together, an executive summary, along with a formatted CV that we do on our end. And then we essentially handle all the application process for you. So we contact the school. We've got direct relationships with the HR departments of a lot of the independent schools across the state. And basically handle sort of setting up interviews, any sort of demo classes that you may need to do. And then I guess expectations from our end, the CV support. So like I said, we format the CV. The personalized support. So we really find out more about you as a teacher and as a person. So what's going to suit your lifestyle. And obviously if you're coming from New Zealand or where you're going to be located. So we generally try to make sure that the school is the best suited for you. And then if you were successful in securing an interview, we do that interview preparation with you as well, because we've got the feedback from other people that have interviewed at the school and just know the general rundown of how these interviews go.
And yeah, Kyle and his team are amazing at that. The CV support, the interview preparation, that's what they do and what they know. So if you are going for perm, you're really well looked after by those guys. And the process actually also, so initially, if you are keen, I'll send out an email after this, then you book in a call and I'll have a chat to you. You might say, I want day-to-day work and I want to go to Sydney. Then I would be passing you on to James, and James will be reaching out, and then you'll start communicating with James sort of quite early in the process. So it's really nice, you sort of get to know the Australian consultants who will be looking after you. If you're wanting a permanent role and you're a music teacher, is that right, Kyle? And you were going to Sydney, then I would be directing you towards Kyle, or if you wanted to go to Melbourne, one of the perm team in Victoria. So they are chatting to you and getting to know you. If you're looking to go in January, then that process is sort of starting anytime from now. We also, as I mentioned, we do cover regional opportunities. Sorry, I might let you chat about that one, Kyle.
So I guess in our perm team, we do also with casual a little bit out in rural areas, Jimmy, I think. But in terms of the perm space, so I guess speaking for the New South Wales team there, we've got a consultant that's based in Tamworth, which is like rural New South Wales, and he deals with positions essentially all outside of Metro Sydney, so roles down towards Victoria, around like the border of Canberra, and even inside Canberra as well. And yeah, there's plenty of benefits to going out there. Generally, for teachers that are relocating to rural areas, there is a financial incentive. And a lot of the schools out there that we deal with are boarding schools. So there's a higher chance that a role at one of these schools would include a place to live as well. So you probably wouldn't have to worry as much around housing.
And a lot of our teachers who are going over with families will often go more regional, a little bit easier cost of living. You can live somewhere about the size of a New Plymouth or a Napier, and be really part of that community and sort of really get involved. So plenty of places around like that. Actually, last week we had some visiting principals who came over representing the Riverina region in regional New South Wales. They were from the Catholic Education Diocese of Wagga Wagga, but they have had they represent 5 secondary schools and 24 primaries, and so they came over to interview face-to-face educators from here. So they're looking at probably doing that annually, so there'll be opportunities again. But yeah, that's just one example of the types of schools recruiting. Okay. Payrates. Okay, I'll leave this one to you guys too. Getting a few questions about these. Need updating.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess most of the interest was from, for Victoria and New South Wales. So casual, $335 to $375 per day. In Victoria, $60K to $113K per year salary. And as a teaching assistant, where I know there's a lot of work in Victoria as well, if you're not a qualified teacher, which I don't think affects many of you guys, but it's $29 an hour. In New South Wales, it's around $370 per day, around 75K, I'd say, to about 113K per year. I mean, those are pretty broad salary ranges, and it's obviously dependent on experience and the position that you'll be getting. And then, I mean, you guys can see the rest, the Queensland, WA, and ACT salaries. Does anyone have any questions on those?
They probably do need updating a little bit, and they are for straight classroom teaching roles without any responsibilities.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's basically everything in regards to the pay rate. Is there a scale to the years of service? Yes, I believe there is. Not so much in casual for New South Wales, but for the permanent, yeah, the years of service definitely plays into it.
Yeah, definitely. So, sorry, Jimmy, I'll just jump in here for a sec.
Yep.
Generally, that what the pay is there for New South Wales, that's 70K. It's probably more like 75 now. Is generally for a teacher that's just been provisionally accredited, so doesn't have that sort of year's service of teaching. And then once you do that year's service, there's another little accreditation that you get where you jump up into that next banding. And again, depending on the school and the diocese, if it's like a Catholic school or if you're in the independent sector, the pays can vary, but it will generally start once you're proficient at around 80K.
And if you're fully registered in New Zealand, then you should go straight onto the proficient level. There is, you can research the pay rates, you can look at them online. I know that the Victorian ones are under the government website there, so you can see the steps that you can expect to be on. So there's no age limit. If you're teaching here in New Zealand, you'll be able to teach over there in Australia. Is it based on qualifications too, Kyle? Do you know?
So generally, no, because it's mainly based off like how many years you've been teaching. Obviously need that sort of teaching accreditation to be teaching. So they'll generally look at what you're accredited as, and even if you've got a master's, you start at whatever the bottom band is. And regarding details as well, will we just have put up our emails at the end, Claire? Is that sort of how I'd like to do this?
Yeah. And I'll follow up after this. I'll send out our contact details as well, so you can connect with us all. I will chat more at the end of this as well around the sponsorship options. But yes, if you've got 10 years experience in New Zealand, you should be recognised as a teacher with 10 years experience in Australia. Is that right, Kyle? Yeah. Cool. Now, as Kyle mentioned, there are incentives, and these come in across the regional areas, particularly these. The state of Victoria offer targeted incentives, or TFI they call it. That's a bonus that you'll get as an attraction to working. My internet connection is unstable. Am I coming across okay?
You're cutting out a little bit, Claire.
Oh,
I'm not sure if that's just me or everyone.
Yeah, he's cutting out a little bit.
It's gone off now. Hopefully.
Been pretty good now. Yeah.
Okay. So if you're sort of a couple of hours out of Melbourne in a location, you can get $9,000 on top of your salary. If you're working 3 to 4 hours outside of Melbourne, somewhere like Bendigo, then you can attract $21,000 on top of your salary. And then the third bracket, if you're sort of right out on the borders of the Victorian state, then you can be attracting $50,000 on top of the salary that you've been offered. So that's sort of an indication of, how they are really struggling for educators over there, despite the pay rates being solid. And again, people with families often are attracted to these roles. So yeah, that's something that we can look for you. A bit of support, what we do around on top of finding you the role and supporting you in work. We're very big on community, having events that allow our educators to network and make connections. A lot of our educators head over by themselves and travel solo. So we make every effort that we can to try and get people together. You'll have support from me here in New Zealand, but at the same time, you'll also be connecting with the Australian team as well. We've got Learning Management System, which is an online professional development platform, but we also have extra webinars around what to expect and behaviour management, and they always pop up on the webinar page. There's one coming up on behaviour management, I think. For example, in December, we'll be aiming to have an educator event in Auckland, Wellington and Christchurch, and it will be getting together educators who are heading to Australia, but also who are heading off to the UK as well. So, and educators who are coming in from the UK, Ireland and Canada as well. So yeah, just trying to bring everyone together. Once you get there, again, arrival events. I think Sydney, you guys had one.
Yeah, we had one. We had one on Friday, which was for all the recently arrived educators and all the people who had got here in the last few months. You know, just it obviously can be daunting. I mean, moving over by yourself, a lot of these people that have come here have never been to Sydney or Australia before. I think, I mean, I haven't done it, moved overseas, but I think it'd just be so helpful being able to just chat to other people just about what that's like, just to kind of relate to people, make some friends. And I mean, a lot of the time you'll meet someone and then, I don't know, one weekend you'll go traveling with them or something like that. So it's definitely a great opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And you'll meet people from around the world as well. We have a lot of Irish educators who come into Australia particularly, and Canadians and things like that. So it's really nice. You'll meet a range of people. So as I said, we've got the pre-departure events. We've got a Facebook group. So I'd recommend jumping on and hunting that down. It's called Educators Moving to Oz. It's a really active group. We've got people posting on there saying, you know, I'm arriving in Sydney on Thursday. Does anyone want to meet up for a coffee? Or I'm trying to fill in this VIT form. You know, what did you put in for this? Or how long did your VIT take? So really good group to be part of. And then when you arrive, as we said, normally in all of our main cities, we're hosting regular events, whether it's a pub quiz or an arrivals event. So we've got over 160 consultants based across Australia. So, you know, there's a lot of consultants there to support you. There's a big network, a lot of support system in place for you in Australia. That's just rehashing really, but that's our events page. Most of you probably found the webinar or came through the webinar via the events page, but definitely good to keep an eye on that. As I said, there's professional development webinars on there as well. If anyone's interested in also heading to the UK, we have monthly webinars on that, too. So. The blog, I mentioned earlier, we've got our VIT and our NESA guide under the blog. You can just search for it. You can jump onto the blog page and you can hunt for anything, but we've also got really good support there, things to do in Melbourne, and then links for past recordings of webinars and PD and things as well. So yeah, it's an amazing resource. There's also resources and teaching tips and things like that as well, so heaps on there. We've got a referral scheme as well. So if you mention us to a friend and they go and teach with us in UK or in Australia, then they'll get $100 for everyone you refer. So just good to keep in mind. We love people spreading the word. If you want to register your interest, you can do the QR code. So you can hold your camera on your phone up to here and fill in the form this way. Otherwise, I will be sending out a follow-up email after this, and that will have our contact details on it. You can click on a link and book in a call with me on there as well. And I'll also send through a recording of this webinar as well. That recording is normally made available to me by tomorrow, so I'll send that out at some stage tomorrow. And there's some of our contact details there anyway. We will be on the call now if you've got questions, and perhaps if we just scoot through, just check through if there's any. Oh, thank you, Tyler.
Just,
thanks, Tyler.
Yeah, I just added all of our just our email addresses if you want to reach out. We're definitely happy to just tee up a chat, you know, just that initial talk about how we can help you get over to Sydney, to us or Melbourne or Brisbane, wherever you're.
James, have you got are you RI or are you just R?
I'm RI, yeah.
Oh, are you? Okay.
There's another James in the company.
Oh,
he got there. Yeah, and I mean, even if you are interested in Victoria, please email Kyle or myself or Claire, and we can, I guess, forward you on to the relevant consultant down in Victoria to reach out.
Okay, so thanks everyone for joining us, and your evenings are precious. We, as I said, we will be staying on now for questions. You can either turn your video on and ask them, or you can fire them into the chat as well. There's ones that we've missed. Oh, sorry. Does working as CRT count towards applying for full registration? No, it won't. It's the same requirements as here in New Zealand. So if you're a new grad, you will go over you'll follow the pathway to become fully registered in the state that you're in. James, you need to be in long term to become proficient. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
So it's really the same requirements as we have here. And is it 2 years there?
I believe so. I believe you have to be, the school has to support you with your final accreditation, and they're not really going to do that for a casual teacher. They'll do that for their permanent staff.
Yeah. Cost of living in Australia, I must add a slide on that. What I'll do is I'll send that out to you. I've got that information, just sort of a brief guide. And so when I send my follow-up email, I've just made a note and I'll include the cost of living stuff in there. Generally, it's relative to New Zealand, really.
Can relief teachers in New Zealand get permanent positions in Aussie? Yes, for sure. It just obviously depends on your experience and the accreditation, but you'll be accredited as I guess provisional or proficient. You can obtain a permanent role with either level of accreditation.
Cool. And to start the process of moving to Australia with us, I will send through the link to apply in the email as well, or you can just go on and book a call with me. There'll be a link on there for a calendar, and you can just jump on and choose a time that suits, and we'll just have a chat, and that's the best way to get the ball rolling. But I'll put a link for the form. If you fill in the application form, then I'll just reach out to you anyway and say, book in a call with me. So yeah, that's the best way, is jump on and do that.
It says, working in any religious schools, do you need to be practicing the faith? Kyle would know better than me, but I don't believe it's not necessarily, but I think maybe it might help obviously a little bit. Is that correct, Kyle?
So yeah, not necessarily. There are some schools where that is actually like a prerequisite. So there's a few Anglican schools that we work with at the moment that do have, I guess, you need a reference from your church to work there, but definitely not the majority of schools. It's more just they ask that you uphold like the ethos of the school and just like supportive of their views and things like that. So no, definitely don't need to be practicing of any religion to be in religious schools.
I'm looking for work experience in the UK, wanting to travel for a Bachelor of Commerce. There will be some opportunities in the UK if you have a Bachelor of Commerce, but we're an education specialist agency. So to be honest, if you've got a commerce degree, you'll be earning you'll be best off using that degree and working within that industry. So if you just Google, agencies for commerce degrees or finance, there's plenty of agencies. I think Robert Walters is one of the big ones that you can start with. But yeah, you're better off following through with that, to be honest. And Zimbabwe, yes, you'll need to have a qualifications assessment. You'll probably need to go through the ASEQA, but we can again follow up with us when you get the email, and we can look into that for you. Peter, I'd direct that one to our visa specialist, probably. We have someone in the same instance at the moment who is working through a visa specialist on that one. There is, with the South African passport, there's a 190 visa that you can get, apparently, but you will then have to go into a long-term role. Any IB schools, Kyle?
Yep. So we work with plenty of them. I actually spoke to an IB school today. We work with plenty of IB schools in New South Wales. Obviously, preference is that you have experience with the IB curriculum. Definitely not a mandatory thing, but yeah, obviously something they prefer. And I also saw a question around Christian schools as well. So we work with Christian schools in the perm team. I know we do in New South Wales. So yeah, if that's something you'd be interested in, definitely something we can assist with.
The IELTS will be a requirement when you register with VIT or NESA, they will get you to do that. So it'll be part of your registration requirement. They won't just accept getting your qualifications assessed. Unless you did study, if you studied in New Zealand or in an English-speaking country, then I think that's fine. Okay, any other questions? I'm not sure whether we've missed any or not. So yeah, I'll follow up with the cost of living. And if you have got further individual questions from here, we'd love to chat to you about them in the coming week. Okay, thanks everybody.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for joining, guys. It's great to another question.
More
Some people are leaving. Thank you for joining us. Yes, we'll clarify something. You can just pop that in again. And thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. Primary diploma accepted.
Generally, no, unless you have an early childhood specialism. A private chat, yes. If you, I'm not sure who that is because it still says Tyler Healy. If you send through your Sean, if you email me, Sean, I'll do that as soon as we finish this. You guys know that one? There's definitely a pathway. You need to, it'll be the same as swapping over to the New Zealand citizenship. So I think you need to be there for, might be 5 years. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. And then, yeah, you just go through the application for permanent residency once you've been here for a while. And then I think, Claire, I think you mentioned it earlier, just around sponsorship as well. So we do work with schools that do sponsor, depending on your experience.
If you have a diploma in primary teaching plus a certificate in early childhood education, then yes, maybe. If you can email me your actual qualifications, then I can send it through to our ECE team and they will be able to let you know for sure.